In this lesson, you're going to learn how to connect to a container and run some commands either to debug or to install or modify something inside the container. Now, let's say you have a container running and you want to debug it. The logs don't show you anything. The next thing that you may want to do is connect to that container. And how do you do that is where docker exec command comes in. Now, as you see, docker exec --- help shows you all the options that it supports. And the way you work or way you use it is docker exec, the name of the container, and then you can run one-off command. That's one way to do that. And you can run any one-off command. So what happens here is it creates an executable inside the container, runs it, and shows you the output. But the real way of using docker exec is this. So you use docker exec -it and open a shell, open a command, open a PowerShell, open something which gives you a prompt or interactive interface inside the container. And that's what I've done here. So I'm inside the container and I can debug, I can install something, I can check the processes, or I can do anything just like connecting remotely to this server, to a Windows instance, in this case, a Windows Server Core or Windows Nano Server here. Similarly, you can create, or install some packages or do some modifications inside the container. That's the scenario number 3 here for debugging. In which case, the task here is to install an IIS service inside a container. And for this example, we're going to pick an image for Windows Server Core and open a PowerShell inside, because Windows Server Core comes with a PowerShell. In the last example, the Nano server image or the core image only contains command prompt, not a PowerShell. The server core instead contains a PowerShell, and this time I'm going to use a few more options, -p to be specific, for port mapping, and then pick this container image and run it here. Why do I do the port mapping in advance is because once you launch the container, you cannot do the port mapping later. So this command not only launches this container with the Windows Server Core image, but also would allow me to connect to it later. It also does the port mapping. So I list that container, find out the container ID, and then I would use docker exec -it with either the container ID or the first 2 or 3 characters here, or the name of the container. Let's pick the name. Docker exec -it, the name of the container, and PowerShell. Now I'm connected inside this container, and now inside this container I can make changes. This time I would install IIS web service. So first I'll find out whether it is installed or not, or available or not. So I would use get Windows feature command to list the available features and installed features. So it's get -Windows feature. It's finding me the list of features, Windows features available here. If I scroll up, I notice that web server is not running. How do you enable this feature is there is another command, just like get feature, there is a command called as add feature. So you would have to use add Windows feature command and provide the feature that you want to add, that is web server, web-server. That's how you use it. So it's add -Windows feature space web-server. And I'm gonna fast forward till the IIS service is installed. This may take a few minutes. Alright, and now that this feature has been added, I can validate by running the same command as earlier, that is get Windows feature. This time I do see that web server is available, and it's been enabled actually. Now there are a couple more things that I have to do. One is install a service monitor, because service monitor is how you run the IIS service, and that's what manages the IIS service. And this command here, which would be available in your lab guide, You can copy it from there. I don't expect you to remember this entire command, so just paste it. That will fetch the service monitor and make it available under ccolon. And this is how you launch the IIS service. So I would use service monitor. Service monitor, you can see that it's available in C drive, ccolon. I'd launch it and provide the name of the service as W3SVC. This would start IIS, and then I can validate the service is available by accessing the port 80. This is why port mapping was important, because you cannot change port mapping later after installing the application. If you say, hey, I will go back to my container and change the port mapping, it won't happen. And now I can access this application using localhost because I have done the port mapping. It is connected to port 80. Alternately, I can find out the container IP and use it inside the host. But if I'm connecting from outside, I would have to use the public IP address and the host port, that is 80. I have the firewall open, the port 80 in the firewall is open, so I can access it here. And that's how you use exec to either debug something or modify the container's file system. And if you modify the container, you can also commit it and create your own image with it.